Thanks, listeners, for joining us. Elko Live today is a Tuesday edition as we feature Elko City news and issues in advance of this afternoon's regular council meeting. We have a lot to catch up on, and then we'll kind of go over the agenda, which is giving our city vice mayor, Mandy Simons, a little bit of a break. Mandy, you guys are getting back into the swing of things for August.
We are, in the spring, early summer, we kind of wrap up the budget, and then we seem to have a little bit of a lull, but now we're getting a lot done again. So
it's a busy time. People are getting kids ready for back to school.
Yeah, absolutely. In just a few weeks.
Yep. And I know it's not a city issue per se, but as far as managing that 4-day schedule, are you and your family kind of making those adjustments? I would think you're pretty typical.
I don't know if we're typical. This is just my personal opinion. I'm obviously not on the school board, so I don't know how much my opinion matters. But from everything I've read, the things that you really worry about are young kids, really young kids. And my youngest is in 3rd grade, so hopefully we'll be okay. Kids that just don't have a lot of parental support at home for a myriad of reasons, and those who are struggling in some way. And so, we try. I'm home most of the time, and my kids aren't super young, and so far they're all kind of hanging in there. So I'm hoping that it won't adversely affect us, and we'll just enjoy having a 3-day weekend. That's the hope for us. And hopefully it works out for everybody else too, because I know a lot of people, this may or may not be ideal. Maybe for some people it is. Maybe for some people this will be the greatest thing ever. So I really do hope that the school board comes back and revisits it and evaluates it and sees. And I think we're all just guessing at this point how it will turn out, but we will see. It's going to be some long days for those kids.
Yeah, and even an extra 45 minutes, or I think it is about 45 minutes. That seems like a long time.
Yeah, so, and I think the older they are, that maybe hopefully the less it will bother them. But I struggled. And I'm just maybe a sappy mom, but I struggled sending my kids to all-day kindergarten. Yeah. I was like, 7 hours, they're 5 years old, and of course they were fine. But now I'm like, 7 hours and 45, Yeah. So that's who I worry about. But kids are resilient, and I know they have said that they really want to evaluate this and take a look at it after a year or two. So I'm sure that will be fine, and I hope all naysayers or people that are a little skeptical will be pleasantly surprised, and that it goes very smoothly, and that it's just wonderful across the board.
Councilwoman Mandy Simons, who's also a busy mom, and I appreciate you sharing that, because I've been talking to a lot of people in the community who are, they're the same way, Mandy. They're a little apprehensive. Right. I mean, there are a lot of changes. Good news is that we're hearing that, trustees, mostly teachers, people on campuses, they're really working so hard, and they're collaborating with Boys and Girls Clubs to provide that assistance on Friday that you're talking about.
Right. Yeah, I know that they're very worried about kids getting enough food and kids having a place to go while their parents are at work, and I think that they're trying to look ahead to mitigate as many of those bumps and hiccups and problems as they can. So and I would imagine that there might be some kinks to work out. I mean, changes come with those. That's just a natural thing. So I certainly don't envy them making this decision, and I have learned that sometimes you just need to not second guess people when they had more information than you. Like, I can have my opinion, but I'm certainly not going to second guess these trustees. And so hopefully it works out. And if it didn't, then hopefully they can go back and figure out where to go from there.
All right. Thanks, Mandy. Obviously, talking in advance of this afternoon's regular council meeting, where one of the big issues for our elected officials, including Mandy, our vice mayor, is the ongoing issue at Elko Inn at 8th and Idaho Street. We understand the presentation today is just the latest in more formal action that is apparently yet to come this month.
Right, yeah. So they are just wrapping up a report. So we aren't going to get a super extensive update today, but I'm hoping by the next meeting we will have something more substantial. They did go through the process, and I think have just wrapped it up in the last couple days, or just wrapping it up. They're going to put the final touches on it, and then they will get that back to us. So I wouldn't, if this is something you've been following closely, I wouldn't expect, at least I've been told not to expect anything earth-shattering today. It will just be kind of a very light and general update, but that hopefully maybe the next meeting, I I'm assuming the next meeting in 2 weeks that there will be a much bigger report to give to us and a lot more details to share. So just if you've been following this, if this greatly concerns you, keep watching the agenda items. We've asked for it to be on every agenda, but that doesn't mean that necessarily anything new or substantial is reported. But I do believe in 2 weeks we're going to have something.
All right. Thanks, Mandy. Again, just quoting from the agenda, the property continues to be poorly managed, allowing a transient population to create potential public safety issues and place an undue burden on the city's public safety resources. So it is not an action item, so it'll just be a presentation, but it's right at the top of the agenda when the council meets at 4 o'clock today.
Yeah, and the police have asked if you live down there, if you have a business down there, you see anything, anything happens with your property, at the very least, report it. I know some of those people just feel like they're reporting nonstop and it's falling on deaf ears, and it's not. And in order to make a case, in order to really decide what we're going to do, we need every single piece of information. You can do it online. They've tried to make it as easy as possible, but all that information really does play into what happens next.
Right, and no one's judging you for making those reports.
No, absolutely not. We appreciate it, but we have had people say, it was the middle of the night, or, I was in the middle of something, or I've done this a million times. They already know. Just go online the next day and do that, because down the road, when things happen, whatever happens, and decisions are made, numbers will matter. What happened will matter. It would be nice if we could send the police out and instantaneously respond to every report, but in this kind of situations, you're doing a lot of information gathering at this stage. And so the actions will follow, but we do need as much accurate information as possible.
Thanks for the update, Councilwoman. City Vice Mayor Mandy Simons. That's again at the 8th and Idaho Street property. Tops on the agenda today. Under the consent agenda, advertising for a vacancy on the California Trail Advisory Board, as the previous board member, Michelle Rambo, is relocated from Elko, and so there is a vacancy there, and that's a cool opportunity.
It is. If you are at all into the history of this area, or maybe you're newer to the area and would like to learn more and be involved, it is an awesome advisory board for the California Trail Center out there, and they, if you're interested, you can just shoot over an email or drop off a letter kind of saying a little bit who you are and that you're interested, and if you have any background that you'd like us to consider, and then we can go ahead and select somebody to participate in that board. And if you have any questions about when they meet or things like that, go ahead and call down to City Hall. They have all that information. We also have, for our Parks and Rec Advisory Board, which I believe meet quarterly, we have a couple or several members who their term is up, but they would like to be reappointed. So that's Fred Badia, Lynette Davis, and Danny Story. And so they've all said, hey, we'd love to serve for an additional 4-year term. And so they've asked to be, if we could reappoint them, and they can continue another 4 years. And then we also have an opening. So if you are interested in Parks and Rec, anything having to do with that, and like to serve on this board, please send a letter in. You just have to, just say, hey, this is me. Maybe this is how long I've lived here. These are my interests. I have kids, or I love these sports, or whatever. And, I want to be part of the community, and it doesn't have to be long. And shoot that over to us. Either James Wiley, who's over Parks and Rec, or even if you get it down to the main City Hall, they will get it to where it needs to go. And then in an upcoming meeting, we will select somebody to take that spot.
Yep. So this afternoon's consent agenda, it's just to discuss these openings, vacancies. They won't be choosing today.
Right.
Yep. So.
Yeah, they just have to come to us, and we have to say, yes, you may go out and look for somebody. It's a process.
Yeah,
we just
definitely
love a little bureaucracy whenever we can.
We'll just toss a little bureaucracy
why not?
in there.
So they come, they ask, we say, yes, please, go out, find somebody, and then those interested, we'll come back and we'll select someone.
Again, these are some of those really cool opportunities we talk about all the time on these radio shows about getting involved in the community. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board usually has 9 members, and they have 8 right now, so they need to fill a vacancy. And then those other 3 individuals are asking for reappointment. California Trail Advisory Board. And if you want to talk to, I'm glad you mentioned James Wiley. He's so friendly and helpful and very earnest. He'll just tell you everything you want to know about Parks and Rec. Mm-hmm. And if you would, you want to think about that. And then for California Trail, I'm not sure who on the staff, because Curtis Calder was so into it.
So involved.
Yeah.
And then Michelle has taken over and will now be leaving. But, the California Trail Center does a lot out there. They have a lot of cool programs, and they, sometimes they'll have to do things, I'm sure, with the facility. But that's a cool facility, because it was really a joint operation with a lot of groups and different governments and things. And so we had a bond on that because we participated when that wanted to go in, and I know the federal government has kind of participated, and lots of different groups. And so we want people from all different segments of the community to be involved and tell us what kind of programs they want out there, what interests them, to keep it running, because it really is a cool place.
Yep. So California Trail Advisory Board vacancy as well. You can, I'm sure, reach out to any number of people. Jan Peterson, I believe, is on that board. She's director of Cowboy Arts and Care Museums. I'm sure she'd love to talk to you about it.
Yeah, really some friendly people over there.
Yep. So moving along, checking out today's agenda for the council meeting that starts at 4 o'clock today in regular session. I don't know if I've got extra pages in here or what.
There were some extra pages when I printed it out, for sure.
Yours too. So I know Ruby Mountain Balloon Festival is coming up. It's on the agenda because they are asking for some a fund, $5,000 donation from the rec fund.
Yeah, and this is maybe a little more than meets the eye. We can make donations. Of course, there are a million rules, because and it says taxpayer money, so we want there to be guidelines and rules. But in order to donate that money from the general fund, I believe there's there in NRS there are some kind of an outline, and it has to be a nonprofit that was created for the purpose of for a religious purpose, a charitable purpose, or an educational purpose. In order for that to work out. And the Ruby Mountain Balloon Festival, of course, is educational in a way, right? They go to schools and kids can learn about how hot air rises and how these cool balloons work. And it's super fun, but it wasn't necessarily created for that purpose. And so we're kind of restricted there. We do have some recreational funds that we can donate, but we need to decide what the parameters are going to be. Because if we just say, hey, if an event puts heads in beds, as we say, in other words, hotel rooms, which is where we get some tax from that for recreation, then we're going to donate. Well, that's a lot of events. There are a lot of events. So we just need to decide, because when you're in local government, you really have to be careful, because everything you do sets a precedent. And if you're going to do it for one, it's best to be able to say you can do it for everybody, unless there's some unique exception, and unless you can say just in these certain circumstances. And so if we do this for the Ruby Mountain Balloon Festival, which is a completely awesome event, then we just have to say, okay, we know that there are dozens of other events that also people will come in and rent hotel rooms. And so it's not just that we're going to be evaluating the Ruby Mountain Balloon Festival donation, but really how we want to look at these donations. And do we think we're opening a can of worms? Do we not? That's something we need to discuss as a board and see what direction we'll go.
So that's why that's on the agenda today. So if you are interested, you can follow along in person or online, elkocity.com, and we'll see where that goes. And obviously that's a group that financially, they always appreciate the support they get and the sponsorship throughout the community. So if you can continue to support Ruby Mountain Balloon Festival. Let's see, I was jumping ahead a little bit. Like I said, there's just a couple of I guess, a transfer of some property, an easement consideration,
Yeah.
public utility.
Yeah, nothing major in that section. And then under resolutions and ordinances, we just have a first reading of an ordinance that we talked about previously. It's just kind of amends some definitions and changes the length of stays for impounded animals and some other revisions. And so we've talked about this before, but we have to do a kind of official first reading. But we already did the first reading. I'm sorry. When we talked about it previously, that was the first reading, but then they made some changes that are considered substantial. So we need to do an additional first reading. Because of that, one issue cited is that they changed the shall to a may regarding court orders on dangerous or vicious animals. And while shall and may not rock our worlds, in the legal world,
those are big things.
Those are big. They can
Yes.
make a huge difference. And so they've just made some changes that could be significant. And so we're going to go ahead and conduct the first reading again.
All right. So, but it is well on its way. I don't think you've had any public concern or really strong opinions on
No,
it,
we haven't heard too much. Yeah, and then I will say, I just wanted to do an update for some of you. During COVID, there was some ARPA money, and it was kind of limited to a certain kind of projects. And water, sewer, those types of projects were kind of at the top of the list of things that we could use that money for. And so we've had several projects that we've been working on. One of them is that on Thursday, we're going to be opening bids for the second phase of the Cattle Drive water line. And this is just a super important project and bid opening because we really need to see how far we feel like the ARPA funding might go for the remaining projects, like Elko Mountain and Ericart Boulevard. And so we're going to open this, we're going to see what those bids come in, and that's really going to determine what we may be able to do on other projects. So that will happen on Thursday, and then we'll bring those back to the council at the next meeting, and we can hopefully award a bid on those. Just for people keeping track, Ericart is in the final stages of engineering design, and they really went back to the drawing board on that because we really need to reduce costs. And so they're looking at some value engineering. What can we do differently that would affect the cost? We want to do the project right, and we want it, to be a great project, but are there different ways of going about things, or what's really necessary? What are wants and what are needs? Those kind of things. So they've kind of gone back to the drawing board, and they're trying to hopefully find some significant cost reductions. And then we'll see that again. And then, of course, outside of ARPA, people may be interested to know that we have applied for some grant funding that might help on Elko Mountain and the Ericart project, and maybe also North 5th Street. So those are all projects that we've got in the works, kind of all irons in the fire that we are trying to juggle. Of course, there's never enough money to do everything you want to do, how you'd like to do it. And so that's kind of the stage we're in. What can we do now? What needs to be done now? What do we wait? What do we change? And so those are the projects that we're looking at.
And they're multi-million dollars. You mentioned the Cattle Drive water tank and the tank line extension. That's $4.5 million.
Yeah, they're not, these aren't little projects. I think one, Ericart's what,
15 million.
Yeah, $15 million. And so we weirdly don't just have 15 plus 4 or plus 5, whatever, millions of dollars laying around.
But that's why these grants are so, $100 million is available from Department of Conservation Natural Resources.
For the state.
Yes.
Right. And so we're really trying to see if we can just get some of that. And you never know. Some of it, sometimes it really does go to Reno and Vegas. And sometimes the rurals get left out. Maybe, hopefully, at least some of that money can go to the rural counties, and we can get some money for 1 or 2 of these projects at least, and we're waiting to see back on that.
All right. So thanks for the update there. Again, our Utilities Director, Dale Johnson, just does a fantastic job in really safeguarding all these public amenities, or they're not really amenities. They're
kind
necessities.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And he really does, the wastewater treatment facility is just almost magical. I don't know if people think of that kind of facility as magical, but I remember when I first toured it, it was like, wait, we can do that? Like, it's very, just the science and the technology and everything that goes into that. And every thing out there is like millions. And I mean, you have to fix something. Oh, I have to paint this or resurface this, or oh, well, there's $500,000, and so these it's just a department where everything is expensive. It just is. Streets are expensive, and water lines are expensive, and it just is. This is not like adding a new position that's going to cost $80,000 a year. This is kind of big projects.
The ongoing infrastructure. And, and isn't that the most fascinating thing about government, Mandy? Because if we could just perceive even, state and national government as we do local city government, which is nonpartisan, as we've talked about, it's really fascinating because the priority is to provide this kind of infrastructure for health, public safety, so you've got streets, water, sewer, police, fire, other emergencies, and then all the other stuff that's just
Yeah, that's, if you can provide that, that's kind of icing on the cake. So we love to talk about, ball fields and parks, and those things are awesome. And I would hate to live someplace that lacked all of that. But you have to realize that there are also bigger projects that are really fundamental to people's lives and health and really necessities. I mean, it might not be the air that we breathe, but it's right up there.
Right
Clean
up there.
Water, all these things, and it seems like those necessities are what really cost a lot of money. And so, man, when you see these budgets and you're paying all these taxes, I remember when I saw the pie for the state of Nevada, and this was several years ago, so I'm sure it's changed, but I saw what went to education, the huge portion, and I thought, I'm kind of okay with that. I'm okay with that my taxes are paying for those things. I don't like paying taxes, but yeah, you have to remember the things, when you drive someplace. I once had somebody say, well, I don't need to pay taxes. I don't have a social security number somehow, and I don't pay taxes. I don't have to pay taxes. And I thought, well, if you call 911, are you going to expect that a fire truck funded through taxes is going to drive on a road funded through taxes, And so it's a bummer that we pay taxes, but they do go to some good things at least, and just when we're doing these projects, you can kind of remember that, step back and remember.
Yeah, and have a little pride,
Yeah. Absolutely. And
know that, clean water, good streets.
yeah, I would like to not pay taxes, but I also weirdly want clean water.
Yes.
And a toilet that flushes and a road to drive on. So
Councilwoman Mandy Simons is our vice mayor, and we're just chatting in advance of this afternoon's 4:00 meeting today. The agenda isn't super heavy. You're going to be presiding. The mayor is at Nevada League of Cities.
yeah, absolutely. They try to get together once or twice a year, leadership from the various cities, and he always comes back knowing great things, and I've certainly been before, and it's educational and a way to meet other people and talk about the way they're tackling problems. So he and our city manager are there. So I'll be running the meeting, and we always joke that we're going to make a lot of changes. I told our city manager the other day, she says, I'm going to try to get online, and I said, we don't actually want you. We don't want you. I said, we don't want you seeing us change the locks to your offices so you can get in when you come back. We're going to run our own show. No, they're great. But yeah, it will just be, I believe, the four of us. As far as I know, everybody else will be there tonight. And it's not a super heavy agenda, but we'll get through it. I also, if we have a minute, wanted to remind people to go online and take part in the park survey. We have master plans for downtown and for the city and for Parks and Rec and the airport. And every few years we have to kind of redo those. So right now we're redoing the master plan for Parks and Rec department. And if you have any kind of opinion on which parks you like, what amenities you would like to see, they ask things like what part of the city you live in. And if you could, when you go out of town, what do you participate in that you've ever thought, man, that would be awesome to have here? There's a survey that you can take. It's not super long. And you can go on the city website and you'll find a link to that. And then they're going to gather all that information and use that to kind of guide and say, okay, these are our goals. These are what we're going to prioritize. This is what we'd like to see happen in the next 5, 10, 15 years. And so we would love input on that.
Yep. And just an example, it doesn't mean it would happen, but I heard some folks saying that they're really excited about pickleball. So they thought, what if we took the old volleyball court, which is in the park behind the museum in that vicinity? You kind of forget about it, right?
Yeah, but then, of course, I was there the other night and talking to some people that play there every week. So they're going to want to go on and say, no, we really like, so we want everybody to be heard from because, like we've talked about, you certainly have to prioritize certain things in the city and there's not enough money to go around. But
yeah, if you don't participate,
if you don't participate, we don't even know, we do have some money. What do we want to do with it? What do we need in parks? We're going to go back to this survey. So let your voices be heard, whether it's pickleball or volleyball or fishing or skiing, whatever it is, go ahead and go online and let us know about it. And again, it asks lots of different questions about location and types of recreation and things. So it's not long and it's not complicated. It will just take 5 minutes and we'd love it.
It's kind of fun. elkocity.com. You can go on, or if you visit a park, you can see a sign and then snap a picture of the QR code.
Yeah. And that's the way I did it. Some of you may have gotten an email. If you have an email, because maybe you're on a city list for a sport or whatever, they might have sent you an email. Feel free to forward that email on. We would love to hear from everyone.
All right. Sounds good. And there's no deadline that we're aware of. I think that's...
No, they will wrap that up in the next several weeks.
Okay.
Obviously, it won't go on forever.
Sometime this
But yeah,
season.
it's still up.
All right, perfect. And that reminds me, I've written down to have James Wiley come on the show because he's really a great source and can bring us up to date on all kinds of things, Parks and Rec wise, and he can remind us again about the survey. And probably have some
He's
deadlines.
a wealth of knowledge.
Yes, and especially when it comes to updating that master plan. The master plan is sort of the key. It's the goal. It's fluid. It changes. It's not in stone, but it is.
Sure, but that's what we go back to when we say, we really have said we need more fields or we need more of this amenity. That's kind of what we consistently go back to.
Just wanted to give a shout out at the Elko Regional Airport. They had their issues with, I think, crickets, then grasshoppers, and now they have frogs or toads. They're toads.
Heart. It's like Plague Central.
I know.
I don't know what they did over there, but somebody's not happy with them. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what's coming next.
But they're relocating the toads.
Yeah, they are relocating the toads. Bless their hearts.
Yeah, they're not squishing them.
I don't know what's going on over there, but they have had it all this year. If it's not snow, it's some critter.
That's right. They have critters and snow and everything else that everybody else is going through.
And for those that haven't heard, I don't have the details in front of me, but our flight situation is improving, and we're so happy about that. And I don't know if you have it on hand. I should have brought that, but we're excited about that.
Yes. In fact, the mayor gave an update at Government Affairs hosted by the Chamber of Commerce yesterday. A couple of things he did say. Our consolidated tax report's a little concerning because it's basically flat.
Yeah.
Retail's slow, so there's some work to be done there. Air service was sky high, if you don't mind the pun, in June, but it's also flat for July. But August, September looking better because that overnight flight is coming back in September.
Yes, and that really was what people liked. Mm-hmm. That seemed to work out the best. If you're in our situation and can't have multiple flights, multiple airlines, and multiple locations, then this really is the best situation.
Yeah, so that's something to look forward to. And you're right, we can get an update on that. I did want to mention, yes, you were on hand I know there's a golf course advisory board meeting on the 11th. That'll be at 9 a.m. And I heard good things about the golf course. I mean, other than the crickets were kind of camped out, but I think they moved on. Yeah, which was good. Arts and culture, though, we got an update.
Yes, we did. Arts and culture. So for those of you that aren't aware, the sesquicentennial, I'm going to call it that. That might not actually
I know there's
be it. There's some very cool
semi-centennial or something like that, or
I swear there's a sesqua in there, but
I thought
anyway,
so too.
250 years. It's coming up fast, and we want to do a big project. It's going to be a big We the People. When I say big, the letters are going to be, like the size of a story, like 1 story tall.
Oh, I heard it was 2 stories.
Well, maybe it's 2 stories. Okay, let's go with 2.
I thought it was 2, but I could be mistaken.
Well, they say the numbers in fee is the problem, and then I'm supposed to somehow know. But anyway, we're going to go, what do they call that little hill out there?
Hondo
Hill, that's right. And we talked about locating it in town, maybe around the flagpole, but that didn't pan out. And so we're going to do it over on Hondo Hill. And things are coming along. We're now really going to enter the fundraising stage, and it's going to be awesome. We're going to try to get out there, raise some money. We're going to kind of some groups that might make substantial donations, but I've been tasked with going into the schools to say, hey kids, like, do you want to donate $1? Do you want to be a part of this? Just because it's a cool thing to be a part of, and to get to say, hey, like, I helped with that. And you know, I'm sure if you own a business, if your family wants to participate or donate something, there's going to be lots of opportunities for that. We do have some people that have already said, hey, we'll do some in-kind donations. Yes, count us in for some money, and we're still looking at that, but that's kind of where we're at. We're going to try to raise the funds. Over $400,000 will be needed, and so it's a bit of a number, but anybody who's been part of anything in this town knows how generous they are and how patriotic they are. So it's going to be so cool once it gets done, and we've still got a few years, but you know, when you talk about raising that kind of money and building such a major project, it's going to go fast. So you're going to start seeing things. I'm going to say sesquicentennial. That's probably not even what it's called.
I looked it up.
Did you look it up?
I looked at it. So there's a Facebook page, America 250. It says semi-quincentennial.
Okay,
Semi-quincentennial.
Yes, that quincentennial.
Okay.
250 years, we're going to say. And that's coming up fast. And so there's actually going to be events all over the country, all over the state. You're going to start hearing a lot about that. It's kind of a big deal. And so we talked a lot about that. Also, if you are an artist, we're going to do, again, the Mayor Arts Awards. I think...
did you guys decide
in November or January?
I
Okay,
think
we decided not to do it in
November.
December. So we're going to, I think we'll do it in November, perhaps. And then, so you'll be seeing this. You can nominate an artist. There's several different categories, groups and individuals and education. And then the mayor presents those awards in several months. We went ahead and picked out the award. We also commissioned an artist to create the award, and so we've done that, and now we're going to go out and say, hey, if you want to nominate somebody, please do, and then we'll select the recipients of those awards in several months.
Yep, those nominations will be going out soon. The artist that was chosen, I believe, is Patty Fox, right? Yes, from Spring Creek. Long time. She's Great Basin College emeritus art professor, and so that was really a coup that she submitted to create the Art Award. So all the recipients of the Mayor's Arts Award for 2023 will be getting a Patty Fox original.
Yeah, it's going to be
cool.
awesome. We have a little placard thing on there, and for those of you that want to see the past awards, we actually just converted some cabinets in that main council chambers. We put some glass on there instead of doors on the shelves, and we're displaying all those. You can come and see what was presented to these winning artists over the years.
Very nice. And then more to come on the semi-quincentennial,
Yes.
Semi-quincentennial America 250 project. You'll be hearing more about that. And again, it's being described as the Mount Rushmore of Nevada, to be located right here in Elko.
I didn't know we were describing it as that, but sure, why not? Why wouldn't we?
I didn't make that up.
Okay,
but,
perfect.
yes, but you're right. 2-story permanent installation right there on the hillside. You can see it from Hondo Hill, from the interstate, from the whole community, and it will say "We the People." And I'm not sure what colors. Is it rainbow, perhaps? Do you know?
I have no idea. I don't know, but we're gonna try to have like some parking areas, some light shining on it. Of course, there'll be like a fence around it to kind of protect it and things. And then, I'm imagining that there'll be kind of plaques around it, citing those who have donated it, maybe a marker to explain what it was for. People can come up there, they can get their picture taken there, they can visit up there. So it's going to be a cool project.
Yep, it is cool. It'll be right there on the end of Bullion Road if you're wondering in what direction. So just kind of west of Elko.
Yep.
All right. More to come on that, Mandy. Thank you. In
You're
the
welcome.
Meantime, I know you've got a meeting to head off to and run in, and you may be actually headed to Corlears, right?
Well, no school right now.
Oh, duh.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's summer, so they
Good.
don't make me come play the piano for them during the summer.
Oh, good. But that'll be your summertime or your fall job beginning.
That's the yeah, fall and spring.
Thank you for doing that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm grateful they let me do it.
That's great. Mandy Simons is our Elko City Councilwoman, Vice Mayor, headed up to the meeting at 4 o'clock over at City Hall. Thank you again for joining us today, Mandy.
Thank you.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us for Elko Live today.